Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Hootie London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. This is a trigger warning. I wanted to discuss something extremely sensitive that just came out on News Nation. That really broke my heart and it shocked me. May the 4 victims rest in peace. And this is a trigger warning once again. I will share my feedback with you after I show you all the latest report of Kaylee's autopsy. May she rest in peace.
I want to bring in my colleague, Brian Enton. Brian, you talked to Olivia, and I'm sure you guys went into depth about that TikTok post. I'm still slightly unclear about what experimental means and how she learned or heard that term.
Yeah, so it seems this is something, Ashley, that she was told when she had this meeting with the prosecutor, with Bill Thompson, and also with law enforcement. And she went by herself, by the way. It's something she wanted to do by herself. So, she lives in California. She flew to Idaho, and she went by herself to sit at a table with all of them and get her questions answered. A lot of them still don't have answers just because, we don't know the motive. There's a lot that the prosecutor just doesn't know. But she did get a full list of wounds. And I think the presumption initially was that that a lot of these wounds came because Kaylee was fighting back against Brian Kohberger. And it seems now that may not be the case. Some of the wounds, and it's sort of just like disgusting. The presumption initially was that that a lot of these wounds came because Kaylee was fighting back against Brian Kohberger. And it seems now that may not be the case. Some of the wounds, and it's sort of just like disgusting to talk about, but when she says experimental, some of these wounds may have been Brian Kohberger just stabbing in places and just almost like experimenting in a way, and some even after Kaylee was already dead.
So basically just sadism, just a sick person doing even sicker things after he had done the sickest thing. And that was just, but I'm curious about the amount of time that he had in the house. It's like, I think it's hard to know exactly when he opened the door. All we know are the accounts of when they heard things in the house and when he was driving out of the neighborhood. But it's roughly about 20 minutes. Was there even enough time for him to, and I hate to use the word, but it would be his sadistic description, play with his victims and do those things after he killed them? Play with his victims and do those things after he killed them?
Yeah, it seems there would be. I mean, we, like you said, we don't know the exact time frame, but we know that he was in the house between roughly 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Granted, we don't know how long it took for him to get in and out and that kind of thing, but yeah, I mean, it seems there would be enough time for him to do that, and it's pretty disturbing to think about.
So Kaylee got some of these wounds when she was already unalived, when she was already deleted. I have noticed one thing. When it comes to all these victims, especially Ethan and Kaylee, they seem to be being tortured. Trigger warning. So somebody was still poking Kaylee after she was long gone. Poor girl. May she rest in peace. Condolence to her family. But I don't think that was Brian Kohberger, because I believe there were more than one person. There are alternative suspects. Where the hands that were bagged, all 4 victims, we only heard about Maddie's hands, that it had 3 mixed male DNAs. And now there's talk about leakage of the crime scene photos from the defense's side. I don't believe it's coming from the defense's side. I believe the leak of the photos and all the leak of the information was coming from somebody who works for the prosecutor's side, because Dateline managed to get Ethan his information, his autopsy information, that his legs were carved. Now that sounds like torture. Ethan's left, right, thighs, front, back of his thighs, behind his ears, trigger warning, were all wounded. Kaylee had 24 poke wounds to her face, her teeth, her skull. Hate to be so blatant, but that is the truth. If you remember, recently I counted all the stab wounds I could think of. Shouldn't have said the word. It will come close up to 94 or 92. So do we really think that Koberger sticked around to play with victims that were unalived? Was he that sick and forgot a knife sheet, but yet again no DNA was found in his car, in his Sierra? No DNA was found in his house. Nothing was found in his car. Keep in mind, we were hearing many people at Linda Lane. We could see what the Banfield boys were up to. Look at the grub truck, the pictures, the horrific pictures they're watching. So somebody was really out for Kaylee and Ethan. Isn't it interesting? If you go back to my channel 2 years ago even, you will see the first time I started talking about Ethan and Kaylee being the main targets. That is what my sources told me. A certain person from Moscow, Idaho, from the college, gave me that information, just like a lot about DM. DM wasn't sleeping, neither was BF. They know exactly what they were up to. All these people were up and about. You can hear it from the 911 call itself. Can I pretty much tell you what happened? Pretty much a guy in black came. The description of Vampire Diaries. Bushy eyebrows. She got her statements from what Stefan told Bonnie in Vampire Diary. The house looks like it's mashed up. Either there was a party and they got attacked, or either someone was searching for rugs or money or something. The crime scene did not make sense. It's heartbreaking to hear what happened to Kaylee. So Kaylee was one of the main targets. And I always believed that Ethan and Kaylee were one of the main targets, because I always believed there had to be one main target on the 3rd floor and one main target on the 2nd floor. Remember what Steve said? They didn't have to go upstairs. So they went upstairs because one of their targets was upstairs, in my opinion.
To get in and out and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it seems there would be enough time for him to do that. And it's pretty disturbing to think about.
I disagree, Brian Anton. He didn't have plenty of time to do that. This ain't John Wick trying to tell me he went, carved Ethan's leg, tortured Ethan, tortured Kaylee, sat and played with Kaylee by poking her even more when she was unalived. Are you trying to say he dealt with Maddie, fought with Xana, all these things within that short time, and yet again he had no motive? Think again. Why are they trying to sell us this narrative? The media themselves. You can hear on Linda Lane, the Davids. You can hear Quinn Kelly's name. You can hear many other people's name. And these people already have beef with Ethan and Zana. I always believe 4chan. There were 3 targets. But let's not forget, Kaylee was somebody's target too.
Had with the prosecutor, man, this is a long time coming, right? There's just been so much they've wanted to know, and they've been left in the dark with the rest of us, and it just feels so unfair to victims. I understand why, but did she come away with the meeting, from the meeting with the prosecutors, with a better understanding of their process or who they are, or what they were doing? Because there was a lot of acrimony there for a long time.
Yes, she did, and I think they almost sort of came to terms with each other. At least for her, I think she left with more respect for the prosecutor. Of course, she still doesn't agree with the plea deal, and her family has been very outspoken about being upset with a lot of things along the way when it comes to how the state handled the case. But I think I know she left with more respect for them, sort of a mutual understanding. And it's interesting, Ashley, she said that when she went to this meeting, she was sort of didn't know whether or not she wanted to see some of these autopsy photos for herself. And she said, can you ensure to me that none of these photos will leak? And they basically said no, and that they think there is a leaker, which is what she told me. And so her feeling was, well, if there's any possibility that the photos could leak, I want to see at least some of them for myself so that I'm not shocked. And so she did that.
Wow, I can't even imagine what that would be like and how she'll recover from that, because you can never unsee those things. And God forbid they do leak. We made a conscious decision on this show to be extraordinarily sensitive about these very painful photographs. There's no journalistic, reason for showing them. He is guilty and gone. This doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't answer any more questions. Shocked, though, to see Brian Koberger's attorneys were filing some battle about the restitution. They're mad that he's got to pay somewhere between $250,000 and probably $260,000 or $70,000 in restitution. This is one of the orders. What the hell is that about?
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ashley, but this just sort of got under my skin a little bit. Like, I felt like this, he admitted to the crimes, he's in prison. I felt like this was almost just like a dagger into the victims, like one final time. Because basically they filed this detailed motion, named the families in the motion, and we're basically saying, look, there's been GoFundMes, and we don't believe that Brian Koberger should be responsible for paying some of these costs that have come up that were not explicitly named in the plea deal. Granted, he doesn't really have any money, so I think this is sort of a moot point. And that's the reason that I found it to be so upsetting. Like, why even file this after everything's done? Put the names in there, call out specific families. Why do that now? I just felt like, I don't know, it just felt kind of mean to me.
Thank you.
This is interesting. So Ann Taylor is filing emotions against certain people who are taking GoFundMes. I hope DM is number one. Her GoFundMe's gone over $115,000, if not more. And I do agree with her. And the Gongalves family. Why is everyone making money out of this when we are not even sure who unalived the kids, is my question. Someone was really out for Katie. I believe this was more personal. Jealousy. Possibly revenge. Ruggs definitely involved. This was a party house. Bethany Funk is Venmo's, exposes everything. Maybe that is the escapatory evidence Brian Koberger was talking about. Somebody was dealing Ruggs in the house. And I believe Zana was getting too close to Ashlyn Koch and Emma Bailey. And Bethany Funk has taken many pictures with Ashton Codd. They all were roommates. They all knew each other. There was a link with these people and the extra room, the vacant room. DM says she doesn't know who uses the room or who has the keys. Why didn't the officer just get a warrant and break down the door? Who hated Kaylee that much? The poor girl. I really believe that somebody was already hiding inside the house when Kaylee went upstairs with Murphy. I really believe that part. I don't think DM is lying about that. I really believe she went upstairs. Somebody was hiding already inside the house. Maybe BF or DM let them in. I've always said that this was an inside job from day one. In my opinion, this is all my speculations, my thoughts, and my opinions. Jack D is a very big concern, a big red flag, when his own professor is worried for him. Do you see that young man with the yellow ochre color looking jumper? That's Hayden. He's at the GovTech with the long hair. And so is Jovito. He was one of the witnesses. Quinn Kelly was another witness. Interesting. And Quinn Kelly says he never put his foot ever in Moscow, Idaho, when there's pictures of him entering the sliding door talking to DM. They all have been lying. They all know exactly what happened. And I really believe the fraternities, college students, all of them are involved. And the surviving roommates. I don't know to what extent they're involved. But even by knowing and by not calling law enforcement is a federal crime. So they all are involved. And I really believe something was going on in 1119 King Road, the big house. Were all the victims unalived in the house? I don't think so. I think these people were attacking the victims out in Queen Road parking place because the police were expanding the crime scene a weekend and a half after the unalivings. We saw that on Fox News if you go back. Let me know what you'll think. But somebody was really out for Kaylee. Imagine, poor girl. The person or the suspects was still poking her after she was deleted. This has to do with revenge, rugs, hate, and all of Kaylee's sorority sisters were at the grub truck. Molly Gray and Peyton and Liz Katovich. They were paying Venmos. How badly was Kaylee hated? Somebody wanted her there that night. That's why DM took it upon herself to go get Kaylee, to contact Kaylee, to visit Kaylee. And 3:33 is when it all went down. It was over. That's when DM is showing her finger. Let me know what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe. May the correct justice be served for these victims. May they rest in peace.